So it's also important to note that Evgeny is in Kiev, and that, of course, he currently has electricity and internet, which is fantastic. But that could change, of course, given the conditions and situation. So if one of our screens goes black, it will be because of that. We definitely hope that doesn't happen. It's fantastic that you've all been able to join us. I imagine that people have read the bios on the website and so on, but just to briefly introduce everyone, Katya is a journalist, editor-in-chief and co-founder of the independent Ukraine-based Zaborona Media. Evgeny is co-founder of Bird and Flight magazine and was editor-in-chief for 7 years of the magazine and headed up their photo school in Kiev. And Emine is a documentary photographer and independent consultant currently working in the nonprofit and development sphere. But you're all together because of this project about building an archive of photographic images about the ongoing war. Katya, let me start with you. Tell me a little bit about how you've actually been thinking about kind of the photography of the war itself. Why is the photography and the visual documentation of the war important for you?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. It is really good to have people who are really interested in photography and in war photography, which is more specific, and in Ukrainian photography, which is very specific at the moment. But yeah, the whole thing started actually before the invasion, with the we discussed with many photographers that they do not have their own archives. They do not do this work with with those collections of photographs that they have. They didn't sorted them and didn't want to put efforts in all these things, like in archiving them. And some of our colleagues, photographers, died without any archives. And that was like, that was a really, this moment when you realize that you lost so many things that they had, like the I don't know, it's like you lost the very big story and part of the history of your country, because it's just somewhere, and you cannot take it from the archive and show the audience. So basically, when the war started, we gathered with Zhenya and Emine and Misha Pedan, who is a part of the Kharkiv School of Photography, which is very famous, and you could hear about Boris Mikhailov, Bob Mikhailov, who's a very famous Ukrainian photographer. So we started to discuss how we should react on the war photography, and how to collect these images of the war and of life during the war in Ukraine, and that's how we started to develop the project. We started talking with different photographers from different generations who found themselves also pretty frustrated Because before the invasion, well, we had a war since 2014 in Ukraine, but that was not the very issue to change some practices among photographers. So many people, many photographers, they covered the war in Donbass. But it was not something, it was not a thing.
Right.
But after the invasion, it became a shock for most of the photographers, because they didn't know what to do, like how they should change their artistic practice, how they should, show what they see. Should they go to the front line, or should they stay in the city, and or should they do portraits of people who just live in the city? I mean, it was so many challenges at the moment, and for me, the most interesting change in photography in Ukraine was that some photographers who used to shoot weddings and love stories, they became war correspondents.
Right.
Like just in a week, they just bought bulletproof vests and helmets and everything they needed to film on the front line. And now we see those pictures, which are pretty glamorous, but it's still pictures from frontline.
Yeah.
And we also in our archive we collect those photos with with the backstories of these photos are very interesting, because
so in essence you kind of had the mobilization of the photography sector as well as the mobilization of other elements of society. So I mean, before the war, I mean, would the photographers who had called themselves news photographers or photojournalists been a very small group, and then after the war all photographers kind of mobilized to cover this? Would that be correct to say?
Yes, we actually since 2014, we like many photographers become more professional. They started to to collaborate with international agency. So they developed they practice during 8 years, and now they are like top Ukrainian photographers at the moment. But apart from them, we have like hundreds of, maybe even thousands of photographers who document the war in different places for different agencies or newspapers. So yeah, this is big, and as well we have thousands of photographers from outside of Ukraine who work for different countries. So now in Ukraine, I guess we have the most the biggest photographer crews in the world. And so many images producing on a daily basis.
In that sense, I suppose, I mean, every daily image is going to be an image of the war, because the war is encompassing the entire state, the entire nation, and so on. So
the war is a backstage for everything. Unfortunately.
Final question to you for the moment. So with all these photographers who are mobilized, given the fact that before the war there was a problem with photographers and their archives, are you working with these photographers now who are covering daily life and all the way to the front line and so on? on ways that they can actually preserve their work and keep their work safe?
Well, what we do is we collect photographs, we contact photographers, and we try to take in the archive as many good photographers as we can, like physically, because it's not easy, and Emine will tell you more about that. So we collect them and we put them to the storage outside of Ukraine, so they could not be damaged by shelling or whatever. And we will have a platform where everyone can see those photos by location, date, and other like topics and author's name. We like, it's just two components. We preserve it and we show it to others, so people can learn more about photography in Ukraine.
Fantastic. Evgeny, coming to you, you've been doing some interviews with some of the photographers who are contributing to the archive.
Yes, exactly.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I want to add that the question was what is important about war photography. And I want to add that this war changed my mind in case of role of photographers, because before I was sure that if the World War, the same scale as World War II would happen, we won't see any Robert Capa, because the role of photographers totally changed. I was sure, because now every soldier would have a cell phone in his pocket and he could make image of everything. It's much more available than professional photographers' images, I thought. But after that, I changed my mind after I saw images of Evgeny Maloletka from occupied Mariupol. So there were no opportunity to get any image from this place. And we couldn't see images from soldiers' cell phones. And the world then saw images from maternal hospital after airstrike, and dead body of a pregnant woman, and that was the image which like exploded. And then I noticed again and again that professional photography it still works and it's still important. And now I remember one more case after soldiers who were in captivity in from Azovstal.
The steel,
were released.
The steel plant.
And after they released, one guy was with a broken arm. Probably you see the pictures, and it's like it's iconic image. And once I saw in my in social media a link to a crowdfunding campaign to cover the treatment for this guy, and when I clicked the link, I saw that they gathered in 2 hours. They gathered like 6 million hryvnias. I don't know. It's about like I think more than 1,000 euros.
A lot of money quickly.
100,000 euros. Yeah. So it's like you can understand that there are huge amount of guys who need such a treatment, but this iconic image changes everything.
Interesting.
So and speaking about my part, so when we get photographs for our archive, we ask the authors to describe them in detail. So the date, as Katya said, like the date, the location of the shooting, a detailed description of what is happening on the photo, And we do all this in order to describe the photo in as much detail as possible using tags, so that in the future, these photos can be found by relevant requests.
Right.
And we see that photographers are not only the authors of these images, they are witnesses who can tell what is behind the scenes. And they don't usually do that in their regular job. So they give out photos, make short captions, and that's it.
Right.
And that's how we realized that Warchive could be a platform for these valuable stories. We just started working on creating a small media where we will give the word to photographers, give them an opportunity to talk about what's left behind the scenes.
Right.
So, and the product is not finished, but I can share with you like a raw cut. If,
sure,
let
that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was born in Kharkiv, moved to the States when I was about 22, even though I've been coming to the States since I was a kid. Started working in documentary photography first, and then moved on to more portrait-based work. Recently, I've been kind of re-exploring myself in the documentary work again. So Ukraine obviously been very important for me personally. I knew from the beginning of the war, far before the war started, actually, I'm gonna need to be here and cover it. It's very difficult to be in the States when all the things are happening here. First time I went to Kharkiv, it was in May. Extremely difficult to kind of tune myself in, even though when you see all the atrocities and when you talk with people, even though it's your country, there's a different story about your own city, the city where you grew up, or the city where you walked the streets as a kid. I tried to prepare myself, but even that wasn't enough just to see in what desperate state Kharkiv is. The bombing is just daily occurrence there. Very strange feeling to go into your mom's apartment when, where I grew up, and my mom lives now, even though she's evacuated and lives in Germany now. Just to go there and pick up shards of glass from all the bombing and then go and do an assignment for a story. Quite a strange feeling. This is also another apartment block in Saltivka region. This is this apartment house was just facing out the open fields from where the Russians were attacking. So I guess it got shelled quite a bit. This is the downtown Kharkiv, the House of Labor, which was destroyed in one of the very first few days of war. And this kind of amazed me. Just complete destruction around. All the windows are out, but these folks are just painting their little. This was a business owner of interior design firm. She just came back, and we were doing the story, so we walked in, and she came back basically to start rebuilding her business. So she was just kind of like cleaning out the debris. People just cooking food on the street because there's no electricity or water. And the phenomenon of that is people, they just refuse to move from their apartments, even though that's the evacuation from those neighbors that have happened a long time ago. They still come back there, and they insist on living there. This woman it's from the same party. This woman just found kind of like a useful piece of kitchenware and in a rubble from a destroyed apartment nearby, from a destroyed apartment house nearby, and she was carrying it back to that little kitchen that they have. I did a couple of stories in Hearthstone because after the liberation, of course, this was the main story, and a lot of journalists came there, myself included. One of the biggest tragedies of liberated areas is when the Russians are retreating, they are mostly leaving a lot of landmines, and they're everywhere. It's really no telling where they can be or can be. So it's just a great danger for civilians to basically go anywhere if the land was occupied. Kherson airport in Chernobyevka, that's, you know, been a big news item because Russians been trying to retake it several times, and that airport is badly damaged beyond repair. So it's just rubble and destroyed equipment everywhere there. I was there on the 4th day from liberation. So when I came in, the atmosphere was still very high, but from what I hear, it can be compared to what it was on the first day, where people were just like absolutely beyond belief that it actually happened. The whole atmosphere just kind of reminded me of, like, if you're sick with a disease and you think you can't recover, and then one day you kind of wake up and you get up and you can't believe your legs are walking, and you walk around your apartment and like you don't know who to hug. You're just like, you're so excited you're alive, and you just have this freedom that you thought you lost. And you know, folks were just hugging us, journalists and photographers, and everybody is just like, and we're there just, you know, we have nothing to do with it. We're just there to do our work. And of course, anybody in the, like, any sort of military uniform was just, you know, superstar. Kids were running to them and asking to sign a flag. I've never felt anything like that before. Of course, that feeling starts to dissipate slowly. The shelling started intensifying. So the Russians started bombing Kherson quite intensely. And as you know, in the last few days, has been increasing rapidly. A lot of civilian death. This is a main road connecting Mykolaiv and Kherson. Over here, it's completely destroyed. So you have to go here and kind of go around. And on one of the days, it was heavy rain. So the road here got completely washed out. So all day, like basically at that time, only military, volunteers, and journalists were coming. People were just basically sliding down on the mud field over here to get through here to come up. And you know, incredible thing is, next day was repaired. Next day there was huge trucks just making a new road, and that's astonishing about the renewal infrastructure, even if it's in temporary infrastructure, how fast it happens and what, like, the great risks people are facing doing that. And it's insane. My only kind of cynical thought about it was why couldn't we be doing this all the time when Ukraine was independent and building with the same pace and with the same enthusiasm? We'd be having a much better country now. Mykolaiv, of course, is biggest issue is the water. People have been without water for 9 months. So the city and also a lot of volunteer organizations are doing these kind of like water points where you can come and get drinking water. But people, of course, are also much more scared of shelling because the city is also so destroyed. And, you know, irony is the buildings that are destroyed are from the Russian Empire period and the Soviet period, which is, you know, it's like carrying the so-called Russian greatness. You know, it's another story about the animals. Like, it's European shelters are now overflowing with Ukrainian animals. But of course, you understand that, you know, overflown in their terms is just, they might not have a free kennel to carry. And overflown in Ukrainian terms means like people are bringing animals from Kherson, like been hundreds, or from recently deoccupied areas, and they have not just a kennel, they have no space to put them, but they're finding space and they're doing something. That's Gamlet, my friend, who is also in the military now, but he's still actively drawing his work on the streets of Kharkiv, and he kind of became a solo Kharkiv in a way. There's few characters, you know, among them Gamlet. He just became kind of a symbol of resilience of the city. This was a couple in Bucha. They came back, they left for Western Ukraine when the war started. And when they came back, they found their apartment shelled, probably from a tank. So the shell came through the balcony, through the windows, through their bedroom. There's a bathroom here too. Went through the bathroom, you can see like it went here. They were like, you know what? I don't like the tiles in the bathroom anyway. We're gonna just repair it. I actually really love this picture for some reason. And I just, at first, for whatever reason, I just like the kind of like the diversity of their faces and looks, you know, because none of them look like soldiers, right? They all look like, you know, a guy who can just like come to a party or serve you a drink at a bar, or I don't know. Today I read an article in the Times, and like some NATO executives calling Ukrainian army a MacGyver army, basically kind of like an army that's put together with, you know, glue and shit. It's just amazing, from all these folks from all walks of life coming in and serving. This image, even though it's not a great photograph, or you know, it's not possibly significant from, you know, from artistic standpoint, for some reason this really stuck with me. It was 3 weeks of my first trip to Ukraine in March. This girl was asking her mom if the Russians are gonna drop bombs from the sky wherever they're heading, and it was kind of overwhelmed me. And I took that picture and I just turned around and I just bawled and wept for a few minutes. I have to kind of maintain professionalism and also build a story in my head and basically take the most atrocious, horrible things that are people saying to me as a material for me to basically do my work. On another hand, of course, you're listening to the words and you're looking in people's eyes and you see the pain in their eyes and you cry with them and you hold their hands and you try to be sympathetic, but at the same time, you can't waste all your energy. It's a very strange combination of things that you kind of like have to maintain to level up your sanity, your ability to do work, and just ability to fall asleep at night and wake up the next morning and continue work.
You see, I want to pay your attention on this image. Actually, I hope Sasha Maslov won't see this this video, because I want to say that, in my opinion, this image is the only strong image in this series. I mean, it's really touchable, and I understand that Sasha Maslov's style of photography, like he uses this lights and his stage, his characters, and he won't give this image to media. I mean, he showed me this media as an example of the photograph which was touchable only for him. But I think this is really strong image, and I'm happy that we got it to our archive and we can screen it on our media.
Yeah, so it was interesting because he described it. He said it was not a strong image, but what you're saying is that for everyone else, this is and I agree, this is an incredibly strong image.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Evgeny. I mean, that's a great interview, great presentation, and I think a really good example of giving the story behind the images and so on, because I take one of the key points that you're making is that you decided that the archive itself would not just be a collection of photographs, it would be these stories behind. So therefore it becomes actually a media presentation and a much more thorough documentation as a result.
You know,
how many of these interviews have you been able to do?
I hope we will do 1 or 2 interviews a week.
Wow.
And frankly, it's also a hook for us to pick up photographers. I hope that they will see these movies and they will give us all we need, because really it's rather difficult to catch photographers in Kiev.
Yep.
To make them to spend their time together to collect these images, to describe them, and we want them to describe precisely, like location, dates, all the details, and and we don't pay for that. So it's like it's a real job, but we don't pay for that. We explain them that, you know, it's very important. It's very important especially for you to keep your archive, because it's a really fragile thing. And we know examples when the photographers couldn't, how to say, rebuild or to back to life their archives. They're disappeared. So, but it's still difficult to explain to all photographers that they in their interest to contribute to this.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Emine, let's come to you. You're going to give us kind of an introduction to actually where the sort of archive project is at the moment and what it's going to look like.
Yes, thank you, David. So I think, I'll go a little backwards and explain what is the project itself. So Ukrainian Warchive, there are pretty much two parts of it. One of them is, and one of the aims, preserve photography of this war. We're starting from full-scale invasion, which is 2022, of course. But in retrospective, as a big aim, we want to go backwards in time till 2013, 2014, when the war started with Russia. Pretty much preserve the history of this war, and also to help photographers to preserve their archives and archives of this war. And the second part is, as Evgeny mentioned, it's also to give a context of how this photography created and give a voice to photographers and tell how they worked and what did they see and what they witnessed as well while they were working in Ukraine at this time. And the second part is presentation of this archive and how to make it accessible, this photography and these images, this history, to audience and to the public. Generally, building archive is quite a long process time. And of course, it's not a short-term project. It's not the project that will be done in a month or two. And we're talking about probably many years of collecting this photography. And of course, as a situation right now, a lot of photographers, as we talk, they all are pretty much, it doesn't matter where they are in Ukraine, they're directly affected by war and their families are affected. And I mean, of course, there are international photographers who come and leave, but we mostly work with photographers who have either are Ukrainian or have been covering this, like trying to work with covering has been war for a long time or have spent a lot of time in Ukraine and have like a deeper understanding and deeper connection to Ukraine and the history of the place. And so they are quite directly affected and physically and emotionally. And so there are a lot of challenges they face on top of when, you know, something, when you think about archiving your photographs or like going back and structuring your data in your hard drives. It's usually something when you have free time, when you like done in between the projects and between of like one project and another one when you start it, right? So it's not something you think is a priority. It's something you do on the like on the background of your work. And this is one of the challenges actually we're facing, as Evgeny mentioned, that trying to convince and like trying to catch this photographer while they're in between of assignments and between going to front line. Even though the whole idea of the project kind of came alive and why we started doing it, it came from the challenges. We are all Ukrainians, so we have connection to Ukraine, is that Ukraine and Ukrainians are facing, and Ukrainian photographers are facing with full-scale invasion, which is pretty much a direct threat to life of photographers, financial threats to photographers. So we also, one of the things we are trying to do is to provide small grants to photographers to support them in between, like if they don't have a job right now, and to do some project which is underreported stories which are not covered as much in news. Other challenges like to direct threat to the archives, which majority of photographers, of course, what we do, we have our external hard drives, we save our photos. It's good if we have a copy on the cloud somewhere. And it's good if in the cloud we have a full-scale resolution photographs and not the ones we sent out, which already like edited, and not the raw files, or not like the full-scale, full resolution files. But still, with all the bombing happening right now in Ukraine, and airstrikes, and not only that, but also with a lot of movement in between. So it's like a lot of like some of the photographers, we interviewed several photographers before we started Archive to understand the challenges people facing. Like some of people took their like hard drives to Western Ukraine, for example, and they returned them to Kiev. And just like probably photographers could understand that just like moving the hard drives from one place to another all the time, it's like not the best for the lifelong longevity of life for the hard drives.
Yeah.
And as well, if you have challenges like how to, I don't know, provide to your family, it's not like you'll be buying extra hard drives, or you'll be buying like extra things on extra cloud space to store your photography, when the resources are really limited because of the situation. And so, of course, we like talking about these kind of challenges. And as Katya and Evgeny mentioned, our colleague was killed in March, who was also like, he spent like 7-8 years, like from 2014, photographing the war in Ukraine. And it's also like raised a lot of questions. What happens next to his photography? It's clearly not part of any museum in Ukraine. And clearly it's only digital records. It's not like a physical object to preserve. So of course, like the idea came from that, from challenges, very direct challenges we are facing, our colleagues are facing in Ukraine since full-scale invasion with a threat. But at the same time, I feel like the idea of Archive in general, it's like it's the same challenges probably all photographers around the world globally, like, and not only photographers face as well, which is like, how do you preserve like digitally born records, pretty much, and how do you make sure that the format you save them right now will be, you can open them in like 5 years or 7 years or 20 years. The same goes with external hard drives, right? How do you like migrate information from older hard drives to the newer hard drives, and how you make sure that all these files will be still, you can open them as they still save files and things like that, which is pretty much archival work. But it's also like generally globally talking, like for photographers, if you're not part of agency, let's say, or you're not part of like if you don't work for, if you're not staff photographer, let's say, or like you work for Reuters, AP, or like photo agency, or you're part of photo agencies like Magnum or Seven, who like partly archive your work. And if you work on individual projects, your personal project, documentary project, where are these photographs saved? And where is the space in all these institutions and like structure of cultural structure, where are they supposed to be saved, right? Because clearly there is like, even museums sometimes buy, or galleries buy some photography, but it's usually we're talking about very small edits of photography, right? What does like larger edits of like certain events, historical events, where do they go? So I feel like the project itself, Ukrainian Warchive, quite, well, we hope it will develop, right? So it's quite have a big potential, like to like type of institution, like institutionalized like place to save a history and memory, and also like to have like this very thematic projects for photography. In our case, it's a war photography, Ukraine war, Russian invasion, and Ukraine life.
So basically, the purpose here is to work with photographers to get their material that they might have stored away on their hard drives, or maybe some of them have cloud, and we're talking about digital files all the time, not analog files, and then ensure that those are copied or transferred to servers outside of Ukraine so that they're secure. That's on the back end, as it were. And then on the front end, you're going to show us how the public could then access and see this material.
Yes, that's correct. So one of the sites is just like archiving, and another one is how to present it to the public and how public can access it and how the history could be accessed. So we are working with Richmond University Digital Viewing Lab on creating a platform which would pretty much take all the information, like all the description of all the photographs, and put it in one platform. I will share with you, it's quite a draft version of the platform, so please don't judge it very strictly. As I just like to show you example of how it like where it's moving.
Yep.
So we will like it's doesn't have design elements yet, and it's still working. But like we work in progress pretty much. But for so we'll have so we're working on creation like this kind of a map of Ukraine with like administrative district, which like oblast and rayon is a smaller administrative district, where you can go and look at the map and click on it and see the photos from certain place, like I don't know, let's say Kharkiv, and then you can like open like photograph, and you can see the date, location, who created it, and a caption what is on the photograph itself. We still working on making other level of description of archive into the platform, as the platform also would like have a profile of photographers you can click and look, but it's still in developing. And and then like you can click through what is there and go further. This is just a sample of 300 photographs on the map right now for the test version. And then we are going to do a pretty much timeline with which going to be each quarter would have 3 sections as well here, which you can go on the map and the timeline and look at the different pretty much on the time as well. And we decided to create 5 main categories for the timeline, which is military frontline, deoccupied territories, long distance attacks, civilian sector, and life under occupation. Pretty much because any of this area in certain point of time of date would fall into under one of these categories. Yes, so this is quite still quite draft version of it, but it's a direction where we're moving with presenting it, so it would be accessible to the public, but also like would be easy to navigate and look through. And of course, we'll have this other part, which is photographers' profiles and photographers' interviews as well. We are working with Richmond University that the professor who we're working with, as a photographer, probably you know, Photogrammer project, which it's a visualization of the archive, Congress of Library Archive of American Depression and First World War. So it's pretty much in a way similar. And
so I've just shared in the chat for people in the audience, and we'll put these in the show notes afterwards, the link to the distant viewing lab at the University of Richmond, which is providing that software that you're talking about, that is helping to organize that. And I'm just going to post as well. that
Thank
example
you.
that you gave, which is the photogrammer one, where they've used this software to actually organize historic American photographs from the Great Depression and so on. So it gives you an indication of, it gives people in the audience an indication of how this is going to appear. So that answers one of the questions we just got in the chat from Ted about how it's going to be, where it's located, and how it's going to be presented, and so on. And just a reminder to other people in the audience, if you want to ask a question, please drop it in the Q&A box. I'll bring it into the discussion. Emine, how many people are working on this project? Is it just you guys here? Because it seems like a really huge undertaking.
It is a huge undertaking. There are 5 of us. So
Right.
3 of us you see here. And there is also Misha Pidan, who is in Sweden. We mentioned him, who was one of the first actually who came up with the idea of archive. And there is Nicoleta Yurets, who is in Kiev, and she is a content manager, and she does all the communication with photographers and do a lot of work on the ground. And then we have partners who we work with. It's maybe I'll just touch several challenges we facing as archive and how to approach it as an archive. Actually, one of the main challenges we have on top of war is pretty much we are working with constantly growing pool of photography,
right?
Because it's a huge number of images, like pretty much overflowing, like a lot of starting only this year, it's like, I don't know, millions probably of photos, especially if you take into consideration some of user generated content. Even though we decided to work only with photographers for that reason. So it's the challenges which why that is a challenge is it requires constant update and support both on back end and front end of archive. And we also, one of the approaches we decided to, that is another general question for all archives, what work we preserve and which don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we select? So we decided to actually to go with more selective approach and to curate what is submitted to the archive and what we ask to curate, what we ask photographers to submit to the archive as well. Then another challenge is data protection and secure data storage, which we are trying to find solutions for it. At the moment, we have 2 copies of the photography, which is in archive right now. We are looking for the third kind of a cold copy, cold server for the third copy of it.
Right.
And and of course there is also a lot of questions coming about how do we manage and how do we flow through all the disinformation, disinformation campaigns, and how do we prevent of photography we archive being used for it, and kind of to protect it from misuse and all the legal issues with it. So what we to make sure that we have all the rights and legal documents to make sure that we can use it, and how could we protect the other third parties of using this photography. Do
you have a sense of at the moment how many photographers you've engaged to be part of the project, and how many images or image files you're dealing with on the back end? How big is this?
So we have about 50 photographers who are part, and I think we have about 70 or 80 who agreed to be part, but we haven't received. We have been talking to them quite. We have been talking to them, and cannot really tell it's how many images we're talking about at the moment. We to start building archive, we're asking photographers to submit each one like 25 to 40 images. And then we, I think on the next stage, what we are going to try to do thematic collections.
Right.
Let's say, I don't know, like first months of invasion, or like bomb shelters, or Bucha massacre and things. So we would have more direct, like more focused approach on the collecting certain images of certain events. But as I said, it's we don't have illusions that we are going to collect it in 2 months or 3 months. So it's probably going to be years.
Yeah.
When
but even now you're talking about thousands of images, because you're talking about, you know, up to 50 images for up to 100 photographers, perhaps, you know.
And probably not thousands yet, but like maybe like 1,000-2,000.
Could grow.
One of the other issues, like which we have been discussing quite a lot, is about acquisition of images from the other side, and how do we, like, how and when would we be approaching, and how will we covering the sites which are occupied, for example.
Yeah.
As professional photographers are quite limited access to these places, and a lot of images which are created from that side, they're pretty much a direct propaganda, and how do we deal with it?
Yeah.
That's pretty much like all the challenges we face right now.
Yeah. A couple of questions from people in the audience. One from Diana. So Evgeny, you showed us interviews you're doing with the photographers and so on. Are you thinking about, not that you necessarily want to take on extra work at this point, but are you thinking also about having what she says, an audio storytelling component, narratives telling the story of life under occupation from civilians, families, etc., as well as from photographers? Or is that something that's a step too far at the moment?
So we have an idea to make a podcast, not only with photographers, but also with journalists.
Right.
So if we understand that if we'll gather this audience of people who are interested in these events, in journalism, in documentary, we can do conversations not only with photographers, but only with journalists.
Yeah.
So if I understood your question in the right way, so the question was about audio format, yeah?
Yeah, so you're interviewing photographers, and also journalists, but what about just civilians, people in the photographs themselves? Or is that something that's beyond what you see the archive being?
It's a good idea. We can think about it, because you know, once I saw it's a huge source of images. I mean, images from civilians' phones, and now we're planning to make an exhibition in Kherson, and the idea was, so guys, you were occupied for like half a year, and you were isolated. You couldn't get all the information about what was happening all this time. And here you can see pictures of Ukrainian resistance all over the country. But we decided not only to bring them images, we also want to take images from them. And the idea is that every visitor of this exhibition could put his image from his phone or send it to our email or by QR code or print it at the place. And we can gather all these images, like images from cell phones of civilians who can share them with us. And we can do after this exhibition, we can do another one with the images of Kherson civilians. So it's our idea. We can use not only professional photographers' images, as well we can use not only We can talk not only to photographers, so it's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Katya, a question for you. Sammy in the audience is a researcher, and they're wondering, would you say that there's a difference in the way the war is covered by Ukrainian photographers who were already in the country compared to photojournalists representing international organizations who came into the country to cover the war? Do you see a distinction between the types of stories or the type of images that Ukrainian versus international photographers have been producing?
Is it a question to me or?
Yes, to start with, yes.
Okay, because I really thought that it is actually Emine's topic. Because she loves to to talk about the differences between local coverage and coverage from international journalists. But I also can say that there is a difference, because when you are local, you have very good access to people, and if you are located in the certain frontline or near frontline cities, you actually you can do so many stories from there, and it's just easier, like hundreds of times easier for locals to do the story than for like outside journalists. At the same time, local journalists are very like they're more emotional, I guess, in the coverage, and they sometimes they trying to find the very personal approach to the stories, which is also like very interesting to see, especially when if there are stories on de-occupied territories, and photographers who come back to their hometowns that were de-occupied, and they can I mean, they can compare the photos before the occupation and after, and many variations. But at the same time, in the international coverage, there's a difference, because photographer from the US with a big budget can do just he can spend like a month doing just one story, and this is something that Ukrainian photographers cannot afford. Well, we have like people like Maxim Dandyuk, for example, who has this like he works for the Time magazine, for example, and he's able to do this story, and very big story, for cover. But this is not like, this is pretty rare situation. So and this affects photographers pretty much.
Great. Emine, you want to add to that?
Yeah, could I just add? I think the main, I would say it's quite different as I think like example of Evgenia Maletka or Alexander Chekmenyov are quite good examples of, or Yulia Kochitova are quite good examples of, like, when through photography you can really relate and be very empathetic and very close to the people who own the photographs. And I think that's possible because these people live there, they live their life, and they photograph people around them and their life around them. And they are professional photographers. They are absolutely work on the same professional level as any other international correspondents or photographers who come to Ukraine, because they have been in photography business like for years and years, right? And have been photographers for, like, I don't know, Evgeny and Yulia started in 2014, of course, but Alexander Chekmenyov, like, photographing since 90s, or Alexander Glidelov. or Anastasia Vlasova. And so I think that's difference, like really you can feel like, it's like, especially when you look at the series of photographs, not one single photograph,
yeah.
that like it's very different connection and much deeper understanding of situation. But I think the main difference you can see is between photographers who have been in the area and have been working in the area for a long time, doesn't matter Ukrainian or international photographers, and who do understand the context and do understand what's happening there, and the people who parachute there, like for, I don't know, 2 days, 1 week, in 2 assignments.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very detached feeling. And sometimes the photographs are just perfect. But then like, I don't know, sometimes just not, when you read through like captions and things, you understand that people don't understand what's going on the ground, or like they don't understand enough of like context or like things like what's happening. And you can see it through photography as well. It's kind of detached.
Yeah. We have a couple of photographers in the audience who are not Ukrainian, but are wondering, but have been covering the war, been covering Ukraine since 2019 and so on. Are you going to want to reach out to international photographers to contribute to the archive and get their images? And if so, how should they get in touch with you?
Yes, we would love international photographers to contribute to our archive as well. And we invite you to submit our work, and we have a website. Let me just put it on the chat, I guess, right?
Yep. Yep.
A second. Here we go. Even though we started collection of photographs from Ukrainian photographers, and of course, like one like aim is Ukraine, like quite a lot of like preserve Ukrainian photographers, but another one is the history of this war. So we are definitely like open and would love to have contributions from international photographers who are working on the ground.
Okay, great. So if people go to that website, which is, let me just copy
There
that.
is
I'll copy that for everyone.
It's there is no platform there yet, but there is contact information there.
There's contact information on that website. Great. So
and English version as well.
I've just sent it.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you. And then we're coming towards the end of our time, but I've got a couple more questions. Last chance for anyone in the audience who wants to drop a question in, please do so. So that's about international photographers contributing. About other forms of assistance and so on. Obviously, this is, you have a small team. It's a fantastic project, and it's a massive amount of work. Where have you been?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. Where have you been able to get support from to get you to this point, and where do you think you'll be able to look for financial support in the future? And is there something that people in the audience or the international community that we can do to help with that support?
Well, at the moment, and thank you for your question. At the moment, we have support from Swedish Institute and Hasselblad Foundation
Right.
in Sweden. But we really looking for different opportunities to apply for, because the photography researchers and projects are not very not very exciting for donors. Let's be honest. So it is not very easy to find the support. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations, whom to approach, where to find any support, please write us, and it will be very, very helpful.
Yeah, and again, go to the website that's in the chat. The contact details are there. can get in touch that way, we'll certainly give that some support. I know Aki, for example, in the audience was saying that, you know, maybe people could sponsor storage space, because obviously you're going to have a huge back end in storing these sorts of things.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's true. But we have some partners in it. But yeah, I mean, this is something that could develop like many gigabytes. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
terabytes.
Yes. And a comment from Dennis in the audience. I know a little bit about this, but in coming out of the wars in the former Yugoslavia, particularly in Bosnia, if I pronounce his name correctly, there's a man called Zemil Hodzic, who runs what's called Sniper Alley Photo, which collects photographic records of that. I don't know whether you've come across him or his work as an example. For everyone, I will put this comment with the web link into the chat so that you can see. It might also provide some examples for you, but I think that your project with the searchable archive and with the software that is coming out of the University of Richmond, which I think is pretty impressive, is going to be a slightly different one, but Sniper Alley Photo nonetheless is also sort of an historical documentation of what was going on, particularly in Sarajevo. We lost Katya there. Anyway, we're coming towards the end of our time. So I just want to thank you, Evgeny. I want to thank you, Emine, for that, Katya as well. Kind of ironic that the person in Denmark disappeared before the person in Kiev. But there's technology for you. Diana's given a couple of examples there about grants from the US, from the National Endowment of the Arts and Carnegie Endowment for Peace that might be worth following up on. But I know that there are a number of people in the audience who are very interested in thinking about this and providing support. And I know at the Seven Foundation, the same thing. But I think it's a tremendous project that you're engaged in. It's tremendously important to gather this documentation. So thank you very much for your time today. And yeah, we're going to, let's keep talking. We'll keep checking in to see how the project is going and share it with our community. And we'll wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Evgeny. Thanks, Emine. And thanks everyone for attending. We'll see you all in the new year. Bye.
Bye-bye.